Sorry. Okay, good afternoon. Today I'm going to look at what we call vector data. Usually if you look at mostly topographical map, you'll see that we've got features that are there. They can be natural, some of them can be constructed or man-made features. And these features are represented as lines, points, and polygons. This is what I'm going to talk about. The focus is going to be on the topographical map. But before I do that, I'm just going to start by defining. I think I've written something on the board, spatial data, because vector data is also part of spatial data. So I'm just going to define what spatial data is. Then from there, we move on to look at the features that are found on a topographical map. And we're going to divide them into natural and constructed or man-made features. After we have explained both the natural and the constructed features, then we are going to put them into three categories, which makes our vector data. That is the lines, the points, and the polygons. So our spatial data, as it is written on this board, it is data that shows location, which is mainly in the form of a map. Location is geo-referenced according to latitude and coordinates. Basically, what we are talking about here is the coordinates that shows the location of specific features on a map. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the features that you find on a topographical map. So when you look at your map, the one that we have here, you can see this is what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to focus on the topographical map. So when you look at a map that we are having here, or any map that you can use that is topographical, you would see that there are features that are shown on a map. Some of the features that we have got the natural features, then we also have what we call the constructed features. So I'm going to start by listing some of the natural features that I can pick from the map. Okay. Features, natural and constructed features. So when you look at this map, you can see the first thing that I'm going to just try to simplify it is to make it simple as possible. You can see here we have got a river, which is more like a permanent, I would say perennial river. You can see because of the blue line, it flows throughout the whole year. So we have got a river there. You can see river there. You can see we have looked at the river as a natural feature there. You can also see the contour lines that we have here, the ones that are in brown. This can show it's a mountain. You can see the way it is. You can see it flat at the top, but as you go to the part of the escarpment, you can see it's a little bit steeper. So this is more like a mountain. If you can check, of course, you can see some of them are gentle, some of them, okay, where we have got the contour lines that are far from each other. So I can also list the mountains, different mountain forms such as mountains, okay? Mountains, okay? To be specific, you can have your mesas, you can have your plateau, you can also have your butte there, depending with how the contour lines are aligned. I'm just going to try to make it as simple as possible. So we've got a river here, we've got mountains, basically which makes up the topography of the map. Then when you talk about the constructed or man-made, I'll just take what we have there. We have got the roads. You can make use of your reference, which is more like your key. So you can see there's a national freeway, national route, there's arterial route, there's main road, secondary road. All these are constructed features. There's trek and hiking trail. All these are constructed features. I can also write there is a bridge. You can also see from the reference that we have, which is part of your key, what else do you have? You've got all these buildings and ruins. I can say buildings. Okay, buildings, that's another constructed feature that we have. You can also have the place of worship, as seen here by your reference or your key, which contains the symbol and the meaning. So some of these are also examples of what we regard as constructed features. So when it comes to what we have on the topographical map, we have got the natural and the constructed features. I've just given just a few examples. So they're divided into two. That is your natural and your constructed features. I've just listed a few. Here I'm talking about the rivers, okay, and also the mountains. On the constructed, you've got your roads. you've got your bridge, you've got your buildings. You can also look at what we have here. You can see here where we have got residential areas. It's called the built-up area, high, low, and low density suburbs. Built-up area. I can also add built-up area. Okay, you can also see where agriculture is taking place, farming is taking place. That's also going to be your cultivated areas. Okay, let me check on here, see if we can be able. All right, that is cultivated land. Cultivated land. Cultivated land. Okay, so in short, we are saying that when you look at a topographical map, which is what we call vector data in most cases, okay, you have got your natural, you have got your constructed. So your natural, that's your rivers and mountains, and the constructed, these are some of the examples of the constructed features. But however, the features that we find on a topographical map, they're divided into three, or they're categorized into three. That is your points, your lines, and your polygons. Okay, so these features that we find on a topographical map is known as what? Vector data. Is known as vector data. Remember, we have already defined what spatial data is, also part of spatial data, which shows locations, which is mainly in the form of a map. So the features that we have on a map are represented as points, lines, and polygons. Okay, can also be area symbols. Okay, so the features that we have on a topographical map are represented. Okay, they are known as vector data. It is represented as points, lines, and polygons. Example of points, I'm just going to list a few example of points. If you can check on your map, you see that, if you can see here in A1, there is 1151, which is a spot height. The spot height, your spot height is an example of a point symbol that we have on a topographical map. You can see a spot height here. Okay, what else do we have? I can also look at our trig beacon here. You can see here in C1, this trig beacon number 313 and 1073.3, which is the beacon height. So that can also be, I can say trig beacon here. Let me try to look at them one by one. Okay, so we've got there the spot height. I've talked about the trig beacon. Okay, what else do we have? You can see from our map, if you can check here from our reference, you can see the place of worship is also a point symbol. You can see the school is a point symbol. You can also see that the hotel is a point symbol. Post office as well, you can see is a point symbol. The police station is a point symbol as well. You can also see with the store what is shown here. The buildings, as they are shown as well, they are examples of point symbols that are also known as vector data. That is number one. Okay, so we've got the spot height, we've got the trig beacon, we have talked about the different buildings that we have, which includes the place of worship, the school, the hotel. All of this makes up what we call point symbol, which is a form of vector data on a topographical map. Then we also have what we call line symbol. Line symbol, okay? Under line symbol now, we are now saying now when you look on your map, you can see, like for example, let's look at our rivers, the shape that they assume. You can see the river, that's an example of a line symbol, river, that is an example. You can see we have got a river. When it comes to rivers, of course, someone can ask, is it only perennial or non-perennial? But all rivers, which means we have got these ones that have got the dashed or the dotted lines. These are non-perennial. Then you've got the one with the solid line, that is your perennial river, which means a perennial river flows throughout the whole year. Like this one, it flows throughout the whole year, is indicated by a solid blue line. Then you've got non-perennial here, which are seasonal, which are also periodic, which means they can flow maybe during the time when we receive some rain. That's when only they can flow. So we have got non-perennial and perennial. Both of them are rivers. It's an example of a line symbol. Then we can also talk about, you can see there's a road here, N11. It also, you can see with the shape that it assumes also, that's an example of a line symbol as well, which means we can have also roads as examples of line symbol. You can see here, I think it's written main road, national freeway. Okay, that's an example of a line symbol. We can also see what we have here, the power line. The power line, you can see it's coming from here, A1, it goes down here. Okay, that's also an example of a line symbol. That is your power line. Then what else do we have as an example of a line symbol? Let's check. We also have hiking trail. Hiking trail, where is the symbol? Trek or hiking trail. You can see this one with the dotted line. You can see this one, which is more like in brown. You can see the gray, not brown. Okay, that is your hiking or trek or hiking trail. That's also another example for a line symbol. That is also known as vector data that you find on topographical map. What else do we have? Let's check here. What else do we have? Provincial boundary. Do we have any that shows? Okay, so these are examples of line symbols that we have on a topographical map. Your river, your roads, your power line, your trek, and hiking trail. So we are still under vector data, which is the way in which features are represented on a topographical map. They are represented as points, which I have highlighted as your spot height, your tree beacon, some of the buildings that are shown on a map. It's also represented as line symbol, where we see that we have got rivers. Rivers, of course, I've talked about perennial, which has got a solid blue line, and non-perennial, which are periodic or seasonal, which means they do not flow throughout the whole year, but all of them are examples of line symbol. Then I've also talked about roads. We've talked about the national freeways, the arterial road, the main road, secondary road, and all those are examples also of line symbols. We've talked also about the power line, the trek and hiking trail. All these are examples also of vector data, but they are known as what? Line symbols. Okay. Then the next one, we call it a polygon. That is number 3. Polygon, or area symbol. Polygon or area symbol. Or area symbol. Okay. Polygon or area symbol. Alright. This is the third one. What do I mean by that? If you can check your map here, topographical map, you can see number 1, built up areas, where we have got residential area. This is an area or area symbol or a polygon. Okay, so number 1, we are saying that built up areas. Built up areas. Okay, let me try to separate my words here. Built up areas. Number 2, we are talking about the cultivated land. You can see the cultivated land, this one in green, that's an example of cultivated land. So we can talk about the cultivated land. What else can we talk about? We can talk about a dam. This is a dam. It's also a polygon, a dam. Okay. That's also a polygon. What else do we have? That's also a polygon. Okay. You can also check the woodland. The way it's marked here, woodland can also be part of that woodland. Okay, so I'm not going to give you a lot of examples, but basically what I'm saying is when we look at a topographical map, the information or the features that we have on a map, we have got natural and constructed, which are also known as man-made features. So these features that we have on a topographical map, they are divided or they are categorized into 3, okay? As line, points, and area or polygons. And the lines, the line, points, and area symbols are known as vector data. So whenever we talk about vector data, we are talking about the information that is shown on a topographical map. That is shown as what? As lines, as points, and as polygons. Okay? Polygons, in some, it's also known as area symbols. Okay. So when we talk about topographical map, we should always equate it with what? Vector data, which is features shown as lines, points, and polygons. There's something that is always confusing learners when it comes to dams. Okay, the dam wall is known as a line symbol, but when you look at the dam, the wall of it, the dam, is known as an area symbol. So we have got lines. I've given examples of rivers. I've given an example of a dam wall, that's a line symbol, of the power lines. I've given an example of the roads. These are various examples of what vector data that is known as line symbols. Then when you talk to points, we have talked about your spot height. We've talked about your trigonometrical station or beacon. We have talked about come to points. We've talked about the buildings. You can see here the post office, the police station, store, place of worship. Those are various examples of point symbols. Then number 3, which is our polygon. Polygon, now we're talking about the area symbols. Obviously, most of them you can see they are kind of buffered. You can see that is your cultivated area here in green. You can see the built-up area. We have got the residential area that can be the medium, high density, or even low density. Okay, so all those forms what we call the area symbols or the polygon. That's what we have. Okay, so just to try and also illustrate on the map, you can see this is our map, which is our topographical map. And the data or information that is shown on a topographical map is known as what? Vector data. It is also part of what we call spatial data. Obviously, we are saying the information that is shown on the topographical map in relation to the coordinates or in relation to the coordinates, which is georeferenced. That is, you show them using the longitude and the latitude. But remember, we always start with the latitude, then the longitude. That is what we mean by spatial data. It's georeferenced. It's shown in terms of coordinates, which means our vector data also falls under spatial data, of which our vector data is made up of lines, points, and symbols. Okay, so when you're looking at this map, what we have got this map with the features that are natural and constructed. Features that are natural and man-made. And these features that are natural and man-made, they are further categorized into 3 categories. That is your lines, your points, and your symbols, which makes up what we call the vector data. Just to sum it up, where I have said that our lines, we talk about the roads when we talk about line symbols. Is an example of a vector data. We talk about the rivers as an example of line symbols. We talk about the power lines as an example of line symbol. We talk about the hiking trail as an example of line symbols. Okay. Then when it comes to points now, we are now saying that when you look at the features that on a map that can be constructed or natural as well. Like for example, you look at your spot height, which shows also the height on a topographical map. It's an example of a point symbol that you find on a topographical map. You can also talk about your trigonometrical station or beacon, the one that we have here in C1, which has got a beacon number of 313 and also the height of 1073.3. That is your height. So whenever you're looking at a trig beacon, remember there are 2 numbers that are shown there. There is a beacon number you have here, then you've got the height. Okay, that's also an example of a point symbol. We also have buildings. You can see the one with that bold cube, the bold cube that you can see on the map there. Of course, what I'm trying to say is here, if you can check here, there's the buildings, the ruins. You can also have the post office, the police station, the store. You can have the place of worship. All these are examples of point symbols that you find on a topographical map. Then lastly, like I've already said, we have got what you call the area symbol or the polygons. We have talked about the dam, the wall of this dam. Here, the wall of this dam that you can see in blue is a polygon or area symbol. We have talked about the cultivated area, the one that you can see here. It's also an example of a polygon or an area symbol. We have also talked about the built-up area. It's an example of what we call the area symbol. So for today, the lesson, like I've already said, it was about vector data. And the first thing that I did was to define our spatial data, of which we say that it shows the location, that is georeferenced in terms of coordinates. And our vector data, it falls under spatial data, which is part of GIS. So vector data, which is made up of course, we have got the line symbols, the point symbols, and the polygons. And these point, line, and polygons are also made up of what we call the natural and also the constructed features, because it is from the features that we have on the map that we categorize them as vector data, which gives us the line, point, and polygons. Then also, once we have mastered that, whenever we mention topographical map, we should always think of what? Vector data. So topographical map, topographical map, spatial data, then we also talk of what we call what? Vector data. And when you talk about vector data, obviously, we are talking about these three. That is the features that are shown as line, point, and polygons or area symbols. When you talk about spatial data, of course, the GIS process, of course, we saying that it also includes the vector data, which are also the features that are shown on a topographical map, which can be natural or man-made or constructed. And under that umbrella, okay, of natural or man-made, we say that we further categorize them as what? Line, point, and polygon. So all this gives us what we call vector data. It gives us what we call vector data. That is all for today. Ta-da!